All right, fighting games, we need to talk. On one hand, we love you, and we're happy to see that you're making such an incredible comeback. It's been amazing to see a string of really high-quality fighting games just make it into the mainstream spotlight. We've seen Street Fighter 6 take off, Tekken 8, Mortal Kombat 1. All of these games are incredibly well-made overall, and people are having tons of fun with them, and they're all kind of representing the peak of each respective series. And it's just great to see fighting games be so relevant again and thriving again. And there's more where that came from. And that's all great. But the way monetization is being handled surrounding fighting games, the way that has devolved over the years, we need to discuss that aspect, especially when it's done in such a sneaky way. So Tekken 8, for those who don't know, is the latest entry in the Tekken series, and many have praised the game for just how well-made it is and how polished and refined its fighting mechanics are and how beautiful it looks and all these things. But the monetization is an area where it's been called into question. Recall that roughly about a month after the game's launch, they released the microtransaction store for the game, which involved the selling of costumes for Tekken coins, with each costume costing around $4. And they sell the premium currency in a way where you can't pay the exact change to get a costume. So, for example, with costumes costing $4, the only way to get a costume is by getting a bundle of 500 coins for $5, which leaves you with 100 coins remaining. Now, if you buy a bunch of costumes at once, then you can find ways to make it more of an exact change. So, for example, the microtransaction store launched with 8 costumes, which are a total price of 3,200 coins total together. If you get all 8 of them at once, then the way you'd purchase them is by buying the 3,210 coin bundle that costs $30. It's a manipulative way of getting people to spend more that has been employed very commonly in microtransaction stores, and it's just kind of crappy to see that here as well. And obviously the 8 costumes at launch, that's just at launch. Since then, more stuff has been added to the microtransaction store that will further incentivize people or manipulate people into spending on more than just one item because of a lack of the ability to spend an exact amount on the things you want. And so stuff like that already raised eyebrows as it is, but now fast forward yet another month, and Tekken 8 has snuck in yet another monetization element, this time in the form of a battle pass that was announced during the Tekken Talk stream that happened recently. Tekken 8 already features a season pass and an in-game store. That's another thing. It's not just the microtransaction store, but on top of that, they did sell a season pass that you can purchase separately or through the purchase of more expensive editions of Tekken 8, like the Deluxe Edition and Collector's Edition. The fact that they're now willing to add a battle pass on top of that, and by the way, this was never hinted at. This was literally a complete surprise to everyone. That's what makes this situation especially worse, especially when we're talking about a $70 game that also sells a $100, $110, and a $300 edition. Editions that at that price point shouldn't make players feel like they're missing out on content if they don't pay up more than they've already paid, the substantial amount that they've already paid. And it'd be one thing if they released characters for free and the way they pay for their development is through the release of like cosmetic microtransactions, but that's not the case with Tekken 8 and with fighting games in general. They charge for the characters that they release down the line through Season Pass or through individual purchases of these DLC characters. And the fact that it's that charging for future gameplay affecting content and also the microtransaction store and now the battle pass and the combination of all of that, that makes this feel pretty egregious, and that has people thinking that this is basically a free-to-play model of monetization. Stuff like this you'd expect to see in a free-to-play game, not in a game price that's $70 that can go all the way up to $100 to $300 depending on which edition you buy. Now, the price of the Tekken 8 Battle Pass hasn't been disclosed yet, but a lot of people are thinking it's probably in the range of $10, which is how most battle passes tend to be priced. I also imagine that they might offer the option to pay additional money to skip through some levels to be able to obtain the rewards and items and cosmetics faster, and that adds up when you consider that the game is at least $70 and has a $30 season pass and has an in-game store on top of that where they sell cosmetics for $4 a pop or whatever. And it's both the fact that the monetization is so aggressive expensive, on top of the fact that there has been no disclosure on this front. For a lot of people, the microtransactions elements, and especially this battle pass, came as a complete surprise. There was no hint of this stuff being included in the game, and this stuff was excluded from the review copies that were sent out. Reviewers didn't get to play the version of the game featuring all of these microtransactions and the battle pass, and many are assuming, likely very correctly, that this was done on purpose so that they could get higher review scores at launch, so that the microtransactions would not be at the forefront of the conversation when the game launches, which is where you see peak purchases and sales for a game, and then sneak them in later so that the positive reviews are already out and they don't have a chance to cover the microtransactions in a way that damages initial sales. It does feel pretty, scummy. So right now, if you go to social media or forums like Reddit, you'll find plenty of people complaining how this is a free-to-play model and a full-price game and how scummy this is. Regardless of pricing, you must admit, waiting to tell about microtransactions and Battle Pass is scummy. The way they hid this from the audience and from your viewers, and the way they snuck this in, essentially, yeah, I would agree that that's just not a good look. And here's one more saying Tekken now has a battle pass. I don't know what to think. If you go to YouTube comments on the Tekken Talk stream where they announced this, right here we have the announcement itself. You'll find that the likes to dislikes ratio is kind of stumbling a little bit, and top comments are saying things like a premium battle pass for a full price game with paid DLC characters and an in-game shop with its own currency is ridiculous. It's getting too much. Get ready for the next microtransaction. Battle passes are for free-to-play games, not paid titles. I 100% agree with this. I really dislike the decisions they're making with the monetization of this game, mentioning just all of the elements that are included as far as monetization is concerned, just how expensive this game is getting. Some folks are pointing out how they're essentially reselling stuff that they've already sold in previous entries. At first, they sold models from previous parts in the store. Now you're selling old content in the Battle Pass. You disappoint with such a careless approach. There's less and less desire to support you with money. Others are highlighting how if they had known that this is how monetization was going to be handled in this game, they would not have bought the more expensive editions. Here's somebody saying, disappointed, would have never bought the collectors had I known that you guys would patch in a microtransaction shop and battle passes. At least Street Fighter 6 had the decency to say this up front. You should be ashamed. Street Fighter 6 was more transparent in the way they detailed monetization beforehand, so people could at least make an informed decision. Tekken 8 didn't even grant that, the ability for people to know what they're getting into. And yeah, this is generally where discussions are at. Tons of comments just kind of echoing the same things, how there's no freaking way they introduced the battle pass for a game that's this expensive, not to mention that the passes for the characters are separate items as well. They're not giving characters out for free. This is important to note. And for the record, it's not just Tekken 8 that's been doing stuff like this. Recently, Street Fighter 6 fans got riled up about the fact that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cosmetics released at a cost of $100 if you want to unlock all of that content, which is just a ridiculous price point for what are just costumes. We're not talking about full-fledged Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle characters. These are just skins for the player's avatar. And Street Fighter 6 is also a game that has a season pass that is going to charge for upcoming new characters, making the just ridiculously expensive pricing of cosmetic microtransactions all the less justifiable. Same thing goes for Mortal Kombat 1, where you do have to pay for upcoming characters, and the cosmetics are way overpriced. And there's stuff like fatalities, like the Halloween-themed fatality here for Sub-Zero, that's being sold for essentially $12, and tons of people in the comments when they first found out about this were just utterly baffled. 1,200 premium currency, $12 for just this one thing. And this kind of bafflement seems to be commonplace with fighting games these days. And there's just a few examples out of many elements that you could criticize about the microtransactions shops of games like Mortal Kombat 1 and Street Fighter 6 and now Tekken 8. Tekken 8 game director Katsuhiro Harada tried to justify the microtransactions decisions in response to somebody highlighting how Tekken 8 has $4 per outfit pricing for microtransactions and Street Fighter 6 $10 per outfit, and how this is getting out of hand. The response that Harada provided reads as follows: development costs are now 10 times more expensive than in the 90s and more than double or nearly triple the cost of Tekken 7. Even the Fight Lounge servers are costly to maintain. In the past, there weren't so many specs and there wasn't online. Plus, they didn't have such high resolution and high definition. Now, so many people want the game to run and be supported for a long time. It costs costs money to continually update the game for that reason. However, he probably only keeps good memories of the old games he experienced as a boy and does not pay attention to these changing times and increasing costs. The economic situation and everything else is changing. If we simply do nothing as he suggests, the game will simply stop running in a few months. I think that is what he wants, so there's no point in talking to him about these realities. He wants us to stop economic activity and stop updating and supporting the game. That is not what's being said at all. I respect Gerardo as a game developer, but I don't agree with the way he's framing this situation. He's acting as if game prices haven't gone up with the cost of game development, but they have. We're now charging $70 for games instead of $60. We're now charging for deluxe editions of games that a lot of people purchase that are $100 or more. And again, it's not as if you're continuously updating the game with new content for free. We have to pay money to get new characters that are unlocked as DLC. You are charging us for those characters a substantial amount too. And then beyond that, you're not even being transparent about the existence of microtransactions like the in-game shop, and certainly not the battle pass that surprised tons of people in this latest stream. It's a combination of all of these factors. You have to offer some compromises. If you're going to charge that much for cosmetic microtransactions, then make the upcoming character DLCs free. If you're going to charge for all of these characters, then make the microtransactions much cheaper than they're now. If you're going to pursue free-to-play style monetization elements like battle passes, then don't charge $70 for this game. Make the base price cheaper, or just straight up make this a free-to-play game. The issue with the monetization model of Tekken is that it wants to do it all and doesn't want to offer any compromises to the players and doesn't want to be transparent while at it. It wants to implement every form of monetization while also being a premium priced game. And there's certain lines you have to be able to draw in certain ways where you have to respect the money of the players. There's a balance that can be found where you can monetize this game in a way where a game like Tekken 8 can be maintained without it feeling like you are nickel and diming players to a degree where it is just straight up disrespectful and egregious. Some form of monetization was expected for Tekken 8 and is expected for games like Street Fighter 6 and Mortal Kombat 1. People are not saying don't monetize this game at all if you're going to maintain it for the long term. What people are saying is you're going steps too far. Dial it down a little bit and be more generous. And frankly, if you have to monetize this much and take things this far as nickel and diming players go to maintain Tekken 8, then there is a budgetary issue here that you have to solve on your end. It shouldn't be on the players. It shouldn't be us who should be excessively charged and be punished because you can't manage your budgets for maintaining a game like Tekken 8 over the long term. If this is how far the monetization has to be taken to deal with the economic situation and the realities of current game development, then there's something fucked up about the current state of game development that has to be fixed so that the players aren't financially punished in a way that just feels so scummy and so ungrateful for their support. People are willing to support a game and willing to pay a little extra, but there's only so far you can push that where it starts to feel like you just don't want players to have fun anymore and you just want to charge for everything that makes a game fun. You're charging for characters, you're charging for cosmetics, you're implementing battle pass, you're charging $70, you're charging for bigger editions, for more expensive editions. It's getting too much, and it's harder to reason with people when you don't explain all of this from the outset, when you don't try to reason with them and inform people before the game launches about the monetization elements and why they might be there, when you just kind of sneak them in and just randomly announce them in the middle of a stream in a way that nobody expected and just surprise them and pull the rug from under people. That makes it a lot more difficult to empathize when it feels like you're actively deceiving people and not being transparent and just kind of dropping information like this long after people have spent money, not just on the base game, but also potentially more expensive editions that they may not have bought had they known all of this information beforehand. So, yeah, look, I'm not saying Gerardo isn't right when it comes to the realities of game development getting more expensive. I'm saying monetization doesn't have to go this far, and also there are ways that the games industry has to be able to pull back on as far as budgets are concerned if monetization is getting so out of hand, and if it has to get so out of hand to be able to support current game development, because this right here is not sustainable and it's going to just piss people off. Frankly, I don't know if the backlash will be enough for the Tekken 8 development team to pull back on some of this stuff. This kind of monetization model has become so commonplace, and these games are still, successful enough that they don't really have to listen to the fan base if they don't really want to. I just think it's a shame to see that this is kind of the new model of fighting games, when once upon a time it felt like, the replayability of fighting games were so heavily defined by all these unlockables that now they charge money for, on top of charging for DLC characters, on top of charging for all these other things, and now including a free-to-play monetization element. It's just excessive to a degree where I don't think it has to be, is at least one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Tekken 8's microtransactions, as well as those of other current popular fighting games like Street Fighter 6 and Mortal Kombat 1. What do you think about the tweet that Gerardo put out there about the current state of game development and why the realities of that result in the current state of microtransactions, and whether you agree with him on that front or not? And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.